Welcome to Frank School's 34th day of the 7th year, first video. Characters for the movie Resurrection that I'm imagining and may actually happen sometime. Well, we've got Marion, we've got Bryn, we've got Festus, and now we're going to turn to Batch. But first of all, some things about to wind up. Shaving. What about these men? Should they be shaved? Marion, no. Festus, maybe. He's this big, scary-looking black guy. Maybe he should be shaved. He's a blacksmith, and he's very, very expert in coming up with very, very sharp edges for the instruments and tools and stuff. So maybe so. Schedule. Well, you know, I sort of realized that any idea that this movie would be made this year is unreasonable. You know, it has to be started in the spring, and it has to run through the fall, the seasons. So I actually would guess that April 1st, 2020 is when it would sort of officially begin. What I did is I filmed stuff already, because already today it's happened. I've begun to fix stuff up, which I can do fairly quickly. You know, that's a bit of a relief to me. I'm torn between two things. The need for this movie, I think, is desperate, and yet it has to be done fairly well. Otherwise, it might just be useless. Costuming, what color should ultimately they wander into a similar costume? White? I was thinking that, but I think not. Maybe brown. You know, all from a single bolt of material. Muslin, I said. Brown, you know, which brings to mind St. Francis of Assisi, which would be fine. Visual transition. At some point I should say that part of the idea was to, you know, when you're telling a story without any words, the visual is so important, to go a close-up on Marion's eyes, and then the person, mostly the characters as they come in, doing that again and again would suggest that he has invited them. He's drawing them in. That could happen. I wanted to mention that at some point. I haven't been mentioning it. Now, the entrance, back to Baroque music. The entrance of the Queen of Sheba is a piece from Handel's oratorio Solomon. And I had tried at one point to put a tiny little orchestra together, and when I was teaching in public school. But there's no string program in any schools in the county. So no strings at all. So I was using flutes whenever I could get them to cover the violin parts. And a girl named Steph, she was from the high school, but she came down for the effort, and she played pretty good flute. And we ran through this. I was at the piano holding everything together. And we got to the end of it, and of course it sounded horrible. She said, "That's the best thing I ever played. That was wonderful." You know, she was so excited about it. I thought, wow, because it sounded horrible. I also wanted to mention Pachelbel's Canon. I hate it, but people seem to love it. You know, I look at it in terms of the bass line, which is just the same 4 or 8 notes, 8 I think, the same thing over and over, because it's variations over that bass line. But its popularity, probably didn't spell his name right because I don't like it. Its popularity, I would use as evidence that Baroque music is still effective. Opportunities for reprises and echoes, they are already there, visually and musically. You know, as the story is begun, possible links can be seen at the end, which could be used. Cadences, also, a cadence is a place where music can comfortably stop. Cadence, and the cadences could sort of allow for making the soundtrack longer or shorter, depending upon the visual and how it was staged, as you might say. Program music is music where the music itself is supposed to paint a picture. I don't personally really believe in it. I don't think it really works. It doesn't work for me, with maybe the one exception of the 1812 Overture, Tchaikovsky's 1812 Overture. That would be an example where he portrays the victory of the Russians against the French harmony and their defeat, with the cannons going off and stuff. The time I know of really where a canon has been used or cannons have been used as symphony instruments. My Uncle Johnny, I find myself thinking of him. I didn't know him well, my dad's brother, but when he was a kid, I think already in high school, movies were silent, clear back at that time. And he would go into the theater and he would play the piano while he was watching the movie. Well, a lot of people did this, you know, because people didn't want to sit there just in silence. Well, for a while they did, and just watch what was on the screen. But he would play spontaneously music on the piano as he watched the movie. Now that was quite a trade, and in a sense, and of course as kids we loved it when Uncle Johnny would come visit because we'd want him to go to the piano, and he was a very popular fella at the golf club. I think you know, people always wanted him to play the piano. Well, I think of him. All right, now turning to Bacchus. Bacchus is based on Bacchus. He's fat, he's jolly, he'll laugh or cry just about as quick as that. He cooks, and he loves to cook, and he loves to eat, and he loves to brew, and he loves to drink. He's not everything that Bacchus would be, but he's similar in a way. And his purpose, comic relief, as much as anything else. I think I'll erase this stuff. It's easier for me. Comic relief. You know, you can't just have heavy, serious stuff the whole time. And just like Bryn comes to the rescue in a way with her beauty after that dreary start to this, well, he would come to the rescue once again after Festus arrives with his real heavy trip and sadness and stuff. Would he be gay? Maybe. It wouldn't matter that much. It actually wouldn't matter that much because, yeah, you know, food and drink are more important to him than that. He's not under the influence of Aphrodite. His theme, his musical theme, the Merry Widow Waltz. Dun, dun, well, I'll try to play it for you in a moment. Well, I'll come to that. Oh, you know, and you might think, what? Well, for one thing, it's in 3/4 time. And I'd argued elsewhere that that's something I would like this movie to do, to reintroduce 3/4 time. In a way, I've argued that 4/4 time or double time has dominated for 100 years or more, I think, music, and you just don't hear much 3/4. But that's a beautiful tune. It's probably the most beautiful waltz I know. But it would be played on a slide whistle. That's where the comic release comes from. Such a beautiful waltz played on a slide whistle. That'll give you an idea of what it sounds like, a slide whistle and the Merry Widow Waltz. You know, it's funny when I just tried doing that a little bit before this video, and the cats, at times there's 7 cats down here, it scared them all, and they all turned and looked at me, and I think they went and hid. They never heard anything quite like it, so it scared the cats. So it played on a slide whistle, which in itself would be funny enough, but, and if you want to hear a slide whistle played very well, it's still funny. Tom Gosselin, you could Google that. And what a slide whistle is a fipple. I just learned this name, fipple. That's this part right up here. A fipple combined with a cylinder and piston. And in a way, he could be fooling all throughout the movie. Every time he would see a cylinder and piston arrangement, try to make a better slide whistle for himself. And I'll say something about that maybe in just a moment. So a fipple. And you know, I think of a sports whistle. How much control a sports whistle has. At one point I was helping a woman that was having some real trouble with it was cruel what they did to her. She was given the entire 8th grade class with no help, basically the entire 8th grade class, and tried to make them into a chorus, and they were so rowdy, and she was a nice person, not mean. And I went and helped her out voluntarily, and I finally got a whistle, a sports whistle, as a way of telling us to avoid having to scream and shout at them. But anyway, that would have a fipple in it. Another funny instrument is a kazoo, and in a way that might work, but a kazoo's differently. A kazoo, all it does is it shifts your voice. It would work, I mean, but I was thinking whistling would be great if you could find a really accomplished whistler. That would be great, but it'd be much funnier on a slide whistle. Now, why I left this blank, a slide whistle, and get ready for this, a whoopee cushion. A whoopee cushion. Now, if you've never seen or heard a whoopee cushion, Well, I've got one. A slide whistle you can buy for about $2, maybe $5. Here's a whoopee cushion. It's inflated. Let's see if it'll make a sound. I'm going to just push my hand on it. Yep, that'll do. It makes a farting sound, a flatulent sound, and that would be his punctuation. You know, so da 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 fart fart da da fart, or whatever. I mean, it's supposed to be funny, and you know, in a way, a fart. It's almost the original joke. I've argued that it's international. It's you know, it's probably from time immemorial. I don't know about that, but I was thinking, you know, how do you a slide whistle and a whoopee cushion, a bagpipe. If I could design a bagpipe, because you know, filling this with air, I still don't have it down. You know, it takes me so long to get air back in that thing, and I don't know. I just have a heck of a time. But I thought, you know, if you had a bagpipe and you could connect the two, you could control it. You could control them both. So I'm going to be on my way to designing an instrument, which will be a slide whistle, whoopee cushion, bagpipe. I think I'll come up with something. Now, as far as it being ever used or being funny, the BBC orchestra on their Red Nose Day, this you can find if you'll Google it. They did a selection of classical pieces and had whoopee cushions. I didn't think it was all that funny, really. The performers did, sort of, but I don't know. It is funny enough. And at the end, they had this whoopee cushion as big as a bed. They claimed to be the world's biggest whoopee cushion, and I think 4 women all jumped on it, and it made this enormous sound. That was to the 1812 overture, the Canons. Instead of having the Canons, they had all these whoopee cushions going. But it's evidence that people think it's funny. Now, the British humor, it's got a reputation, and there I think you kind of see it. It's on Red Nose Day at BBC. Now, casting for this guy, Batch, is, there was a guy, I actually recontacted the hostel in Lisbon, where twice I ran into him, where he was sort of the MC at a Saturday night festival, and he would have been perfect. He couldn't really dance, but he didn't care. He went around trying to dance, and he was. I just said to somebody, you know what? But in Portuguese, well, no, English, the guy that I was talking to said, but he's a really funny guy. And yeah, that's true, he was. His name was Adam, or Adam, Adam in Portuguese. And I could find his name again, I think, because I talked about it elsewhere in the school. But my choice would be a guy named Michael, a former student of mine. He, I think, would be perfect. I don't know if he'd do it or not. But it occurred to me yesterday that I have a guy I work with all the time. He comes and helps me. His name's Adam, and he could probably do it too. All right, I've saved this for last. Oh, that was to be the world's biggest whoopee cushion, they claim. Yeah, I had sometimes this kind of humor around a fart is considered adolescent humor, teenage boy humor or something, probably is. Anyway, I had a buddy in high school, Bill, and he claimed, I think I heard him do it once, that he could fart to scale. Fart to scale. I remember exactly where I was when I think he did it. I don't know. I should maybe contact him and ask him, because he's a Facebook friend, actually. Say, Bill, were you really able to fart to scale? I don't know, kids. But in any case, now that's a sphincter.